here's the deal. Today is what? Today is Tuesday, oh? I just didn't stick. Today's Chav Tes, Tammuz. Tonight is Reish Chodesh Tammuz. And they were Mefarsim, Chodesh Menachem. They were Mefarsim a Hira from the Rebbe. I went through it so quickly, I didn't see the Hira. The Rebbe said people should give tzedakah like as if it's a fast. And they should add in Torah and so on. Okay, now I don't know how to do this. I either please you. Okay, I'm good. We're good. Yesterday, we have echo, Baruch Hashem. We started Perek Shlishi. We started learning. I don't know what is echo. And we started learning about the Menorah, the Menorah. We're holding Perek Gimel, Halacha Vav, which is the bottom of page Mem Gimel. The bottom of page Mem Gimel. We're going slower than I would like, maybe a lot slower than I would like. So yesterday we finished the Mizbeach. If you were here, we finished the Mizbeach. And we started the Menorah, and I explained to you, first of all, that the middle pole is really called the Menorah. The other 6 branches are called Knei HaMenorah. Second of all, each pole had at the top 3 cups, a button, and a flower, and the cups were upside down. This is one of the things that the Rebbe analyzed in the picture that was found in the Gnize, Ksav Yad Kodesh HaRambam, an original manuscript from the Rambam himself, which was nitparsem, was publicized, was disseminated around 50 years ago. And of course, on the basis of this, we have this image, where for the first time in 2,000 years, the Menorah doesn't have curved branches, it has diagonal branches. And you can see the cups are all upside down. Now, we read on. Halacha Vav. Ha-melkachayim v'hamachtas. Melkachayim means tweezers. That's the best word for it. Little tongs that hold wicks, and machtais were tiny little shovels, like little leidlach, little spoons. And these machtais were used to clean out whatever was left in the Menorah. Every day there was a mitzvah called hatova, to make the Menorah good. And hatova meant that they cleaned it out. And Rambam is the only opinion who holds that the Menorah burned by day and by night. No, the Rambam holds it burned day and night. Tamid means day and night. All the other Rishonim hold that Tamid means me'erev ad boker, from night till morning. The Rambam holds Tamid means day and night. And if you know the Maimer of Atat Tetzaveh, you know the big difference between Tamid and Me'erev Ad Boker. So the Rambam holds that the Menorah burned Tamid. So every morning, they would do Hatova. They would clean it. In the evening, they would fill it again. And in the morning, they would do Hatova. So according to most Rishonim, in the morning they cleaned it. A whole day it stood empty. And at night they just lit it. According to the Rambam, they cleaned it and they lit it. At night, they didn't clean it, they added more oil, if they needed to, and they let it burn through the night, and every morning it was cleaned. And the tools that they used for cleaning it were called melkachayim and machtais. Uklei hashemen, and the jugs that actually held the oil, einon mikala kikar, they're not a part of that unit of gold called the kikar, from which the Menorah and the nadas were beaten out, as we discussed yesterday. Because it says in the Pasuk that the Menorah, and as we discussed yesterday, the Menorah includes also what's called the Neiros, the candles. Now, I don't know how to do this. Okay, can I get a picture? You see, when you're looking at this picture here, at the top of the Menorah you have these 3 cups, and above the 3 cups you have a button, and the button you have a little, this is supposed to be a flower. And then there's this funny looking thing which is called, it looks like a tea. It was called a nei. It was a cup that held fuel, and inside that cup there was a wick, and attached to that wick was a fire. Those neidos, those cups, which held fuel, were not a part of the Gviyim and the Kafterim and the Prachim, but they are a part of the Kikar Zahav. But the tools that were used, that were made separately to clean the Menorah and to maintain the Menorah, are not included in that weight. It says about the Menorah Zahav Torah, then it says separately, Umalkecheha umachteseha zohav toiv. And it doesn't say v'lei neme neirei seha zohav toiv. It doesn't say a second time that the candles were zohav toiv. Mipnei shaneires kvuim b'meneda. The cups that held the fuel, which you really don't see so clearly in this image, because it's supposed to be up here, was made of gold and was one piece, was part and parcel of the meneda itself. And the Rambam says v'hei mekala kikar. So the Rambam is saying that the meneda was made of gold. Anything that was attached to the meneda was made from the same piece, block of gold, which had a distinct weight. It took incredible craftsmanship to maneuver the gold, because they couldn't weld it, they couldn't cut it in, they couldn't make it in pieces and put it together. That made out of, that they hit it with a hammer of some sort. I mean, I understand that much about metallurgy is, all of you understand whether Pluto is a planet or isn't a planet. That's what you understand. Maybe some of you understand that better than I understand metallurgy. I should be careful what I say, to whom I say it. But I don't understand how this is done. But it's umnus. It's a craft, it's a chush, it's a skill, it's a kisharin, it's people are good at this. Naturally, and then of course they learn. And they took this block of gold and they maneuvered it, they used whatever forces they used to maneuver it to create the shape of the menorah. And it had a precise weight, one kikar, and included in that precise weight were also the candles. Halacha Zayin. Shivekne HaMeneda Ma'akven Zezeh. These 7 branches, the arms of the menorah, in other words, the 3 to the right and the 3 to the left and the center one, are all requisite. They must be there. If one of them is missing, you can't light the menorah with 6 candles. Dafka 7. You have to have, it's puzzle. You have to have 7 branches. V'shivas neirei seha ma'akven zeh, and the 7 neiros. And the word neir doesn't mean the fire. It means this gold cup which sat on top of the brachim, at the top of the menorah, where they put the oil and the wick and so on. If one of them is missing, the whole menorah is no good. Bein shahisa shel zav, whether it's made of gold. Bein shahisa shel mini matachas, whether it's made of other kinds of metal. And then Rambam repeats again, and I don't know why he repeats it a second time. The big lumdim are going to have to explain why. The candles were fixed on the arms. They were one part and parcel of the arms. The only svara I could, the Rambam says exactly the same thing in the end of the previous halach. The only thing I could say is that maybe if you made it from different metals, so we learned yesterday they didn't make all the decorations. They didn't make the kafterim or the brachim or the gviyim. So the Rambam says even if it's a plain menorah, but the cups that held the fuel were made out of the same material, same piece that the menorah itself was made. Halacha ches, okay, halacha ches. Sheishas hanedis. Hakvuim b'sheishas hakanim. Let me give you a little bit of an introduction, okay? There is one of the greatest fundraising tips in the history of Jewish culture. It's called the Ner Tamid. I'm not a member of a Reformed temple, or I'm told like a Chabad institution, but in front of Lubavitch Nebuch is missing a Ner Tamid, but in every shul, at the front of the shul, there's a candle that burns, always called Ner Tamid. People donate thousands of dollars to have their inscription on the Ner Tamid. What's this Ner Tamid? A constant candle. Most people, of course, don't know anything other than the fact that it's a popular donation. The people who are in a position to give extra compete for this chus, because everybody sees it and it's always burning. Where does this Ner Tamid come from? The Ner Tamid comes from the menorah. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says, Chazal say, that there was something called the Ner Ma'aravi, the western light. And the Ner Ma'aravi is the Ner Tamid. It's the candle that never went out. And the Chazal say it was a nes. The Lashon is, Boy hayo maschil. The first, they would light the other candles from this Ner Ma'aravi. And when all the other candles burnt out, the Ner Ma'aravi was still burning. They put the same amount of oil in the Ner Ma'aravi as in all of the others. It never went out. And the Chazal say that this was a edus sheshchina sheida b'Yisrael. This is proof that the Shechina rests amongst the Yidden. Now, of course, the way you explain it is that the Order HaKodesh nobody could see. It's in the Holy of Holies, but the menorah people could see. Halachically, you could actually carry the menorah outside into the courtyard, and you could see a nes. The candle that was lit first burnt the longest, and it was called the Ner Ma'aravi, the Western Light. And this is the Ner Tamid that they charged $36,000 for the rights to put your Elter Zayda's nomen on it. Now, which one is the Ner Ma'aravi? Which is the western light? So there's an argument. It's Jewish. There's got to be an argument, yeah? And this argument is based on another argument. And again, here the Rambam is different than all the Rishonim. And for those who are not aware, the Rebbe, our Rebbe, wrote an entire essay that's called something Hamaneda. The Rebbe wrote an essay which is printed now. It's maybe 50 pages. He wrote it in the 30s. He wrote it, somebody asked, the Frierdiker Rebbe apparently asked the Rebbe to write it for one of the Shmotkins. What's it called? Something Hamaneda. Nobody remembers it. They found it after Gimel Tammuz in the Rebbe's house. And they printed it with the Rishimis. The Rebbe has letters where he references it. The Rebbe wrote an entire essay, and he completed it, on the Meneda. The first half is Niglis, Halacha, and Lomdis. The second half is Chasidus and Kabbalah. It's very profound. I mean, I read it at the time when it came out. I'm ashamed of myself that I don't remember the name. But you can buy it. It's a little thin, hard-covered book of the Rebbe's essay on the Meneda. In this essay, the Rebbe discusses the two opinions about the Meneda. And the two opinions are the following. The halacha is, all the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash were Mizrach Ma'ariv Munachim. They were east to west, they were this way. The Aron HaKodesh, the Holy Ark, was this way, was south to north, north to south. The Meneda is a machlekes. All the Rishonim, it's based on a machlekes in Rebbe Ben Yankiv and the Gemara Chachamim. In other words, a machlekes Tanoim that spills over to machlekes Rishonim. Usually when the rabbis of the Mishnah and the Gemara argue about it, by the time you get to the later rabbis, they figured out what the halach is. And there's instances where the Rishonim continue to argue about the same things that the Tanoim argued about. Most Rishonim hold that the Meneda is also Mizrach Ma'ariv, this way, east to west. The Rambam holds it's tough and Aron, like the Aron. What's the difference? The difference is which one is the Ner Ma'aravi, which is the western light. If you hold like the other opinions, not like the Rambam, that the Meneda's direction is this way, east to west, the second candle from the east is called the western light. There's the easternmost candle, and there's a westernmost candle, right? This is east, that's Mizrach. This is Ma'ariv. If the Meneda is standing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so the first one would be Ner Mizrachi, the second one is called Ner Ma'aravi. And the miracle of the Ner Tamid, that Mimenu Hayamaschal Aboy Hayamasayim, was in that second candle from the east. But the Rambam holds it went this way, north to south, like the Aron. So the Rambam holds that the Ner Ma'aravi, what we call the Ner Tamid, was the middle one. You follow? Those are the two opinions. Now let's learn this halach. The last one here. That's how it goes. Ma'aravi means the first one towards the west. There's other examples of this also, that the beginning of Ma'ariv hates Shen Ma'aravi. If I stay, but the one away from Mizrach hates Shen Ma'ariv. One away from Mizrach and already Ma'ariv. That's the idea. So let's read. Now remember, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Maybe I'll put on my glasses, I'll hear you better. I'm sorry. The Kaisel Ma'aravi is a whole other situation. Kaisel Ma'aravi is not even the wall of the Beis Hamikdash, it's the wall of the Harabayis. It's the outermost wall. Okay, Sheishes Haneres Hakvuim B'Sheishes Hakan. We know that there are 6 candles. Now a candle means what? It means a cup that holds fuel and a wick. That's what the word Neir means. Hayetzim and Hamaneda that are coming out of the Meneda, Kulam Pneim Laneda Emtsai, they all face the middle light. The middle one. Turn the page. Shal Knei Hamaneda, which stood on the pole, which is called the Meneda proper. V'zeh Haned Ha'emtsai, this middle candle, Panav Keneged Kedesh HaKadoshim, was tilted towards the Holy of Holies, and the Rambam says, V'hu Hanikra Ner Ma'aravi. This is what is called the western light. Most people call the western light the second from the east, because they think of the Meneda this way, Mizrach Ma'ariv. The Rambam Paskins this way, Tzaf and Darim, and it's the middle one. So you understand what that means? We're not talking about the wick, we're talking about the actual receptacle. The cup was tilted. the cups that held over tilted like this here. And the middle one was tilted back towards Ma'ariv. And of course the oil, it was designed that way. Right. That's well, the fire was also right. I'm sorry. You couldn't fix it. It was attached. Halachates. Now these are technical things, okay? Hagviyim Daimim Lakesis Alexandria, the cups, the beakers that we talked about yesterday. I used yesterday a better word in English. I forgot what word I used. Goblets, maybe. They were shaped in like a triangle. They were wide at the top and now at the bottom. They're called Alexandrian glasses. Pi and Racha, the mouth is wide, Vashuleim cuts it, and the bottom is narrow. Va'akaftedim, and the buttons we described yesterday are kamin tapuchim krusiim, are like apples from krusiim. I think this means Cyprus, but I could be wrong. No, krusiim is not Cyprus. No, I'm wrong. I don't know what that is. Sheinaruchin ma'at kibeya sheshnei rashay chad, and it's not a perfect circle. It was shaped like an egg. It was longer than it was tall, I suppose. It was oblong rather than a perfect circle. Va'aprachim, and the flowers are k'mei pirchei ha'amudim, could be compared to the flowers that you see on columns. You know, in fancy buildings they have stone columns. The Romans made stone columns, so they'll be decorated with these designs. So you'll have what looks like a opening up of a flower. It's a dish that folds back, right? Like a plate, right? Like a dinner plate. But the edge is folded back. That's what the parachim looked like. Visvasek full of chutz, and its tip is folded back outward. Now, halacha yud is important, people, okay? And for this we need the picture. Okay? You ready? Hold on to your picture and hold on to your page. Goiva hameneira hayishmoina asatefach. The height of the meneira was 18 hand breadths. We figured the other day that a hand breadth, called a hand breadth. A hand breadth is approximately 3 inches and a third, I think. I forgot what we figured. Like a little bit more than 3 inches. Say 3 inches and a quarter. So if you have 18 hand breadths, so it's 18 times 3 and a quarter. 18 times 3 is how much? Is 54. And 18 times a quarter is 4.5. So the menorah was 58.5 inches tall. 58 inches, almost 5 feet. I'm 6 feet tall. The menorah was this high. It was a big piece. It was a große shtickle. Okay? I was in somebody's house, and he has a menorah made of solid silver, this tall. He paid a hamoin. It's designed to look like the menorah of 770, and it's out of silver. And here's how it breaks down. That means this. This flower here and this leg. Remember, I told you yesterday, this is just a personal opinion. I never saw it in any sefer, but Amina does a davar aposhet. You have to say that this leg was made of a lot of gold. It had to be heavy, because it had to keep this whole thing from tipping over. This was a big piece, and it was quite heavy. You have to assume that this leg was solid gold. So I don't know what percentage of that kikot it contained, but the weight was very close to the ground. That's how you keep things balanced. From the floor to the tip of this flower is 3 tfachim, 3 handbreadths. And we read on. Ushnei tfachim cholak, and then there are 2 empty tfachim. This was 2 tfachim right here, empty space. V'tefach, and 1 handbreadth, shabay kviyah katafedach, which had a cup and a button and a flower. Now here, this looks bigger than this. In reality, this is only 1 tefach, and this is 2 tfachim. As they say about David HaMelech, al tabet al mareu. V'tefach, v'tfachayim cholak, and then there were 2 more empty. So you have 3 and 2 and 1 and 2. 3 and 2 is 5 and 1 is 6 and 2 is 8. So until here is 8 tfach. And we continue. V'tefach sheboy, v'tefach kafteid, u'shnei konim yetz mimena elech ve'echad helech ve'echad helech, v'nimshochem ve'elim keneged yeva menera. Then there was a button and 2 arms. And the arms extended upwards against the height of the menera. The Rambam wants to tell you that the candles at the top were the same height. You may have seen certain pictures where they make the candles like this. In other words, they just assume that all the arms are the same length. So the outer branches, the candles are lower down. The Rambam says no. All 7 lights were the same height. So the outer arm had to be longer than the second arm and even longer than the first arm, so that it should all reach the top at the same time. And he continues, V'tefach cholak, and then there was an empty tefach. That's this. Let's count again. 3 and 2 is 5, and 1 is 6, and 2 is 8, and 1 is 9, and 1 is 10. And we keep reading. V'tefach, there was another handbreadth, kafter, a button, shnei kanim, and 2 arms, Yaitzim mimenu, coming out of it, achat helech, v'achat helech, one going this way, the other going that way, v'nimshachim ve'elum connected yev ha-meneda, and they're drawn and they rise to the height of the meneda. That would be these. V'tefach cholak, and there'll be an empty tefach again. V'tefach at another handbreadth, kafter, a button, shnei kanim, and 2 arms, Yaitzim mimenu, they come out of it, achat helech, v'achat helech, one this way, v'nimshachim ve'elum connected yev ha-meneda, they're drawn and they rise to the height of the meneda. That would be this. So let's do it one more time. 3 and 2 is 5, and 1 is 6, and 2 is 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, then he continues. For Chaim Cholak, this is 2 empty handbreadths. That's, how much do we got? 3 and 2 is 5, and 1 is 6, and 2 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 2 is 15. Nishtayru shleisha tvach. You have 3 handbreadths left. Shabehen, which held shleisha gvim kafta v'perach, 3 cups, and a button, and a flower. And of course, we should add and a neir. That the Rambam doesn't say it again. But the chayra, the neir was a part of the chay tvachim, it was made together with it. So the Rambam just gave us a precise cheshbon of the 18 tvachim of the meneda this way. Okay? The even, and there was a stone, hoysal lifnei ha-meneda, which stood in front of the meneda. Uba shalosh malus, at 3 steps. Now the whole meneda is 5 feet high. You have to assume the average kohen is a normal height. He could stand on the ground. No! Have to climb up on 3 steps. Shaleh HaKoyin, the Koyin stands on those steps, and he cleans out those cups. And on those steps he would place Kli Shamna, the jugs of oil, and the tweezers or the tongs, and the little shovels, B'shas HaHatova, when he was cleaning the meneda. So there was a little platform. The Koyin has to be able to stand on it. So maybe they used miniature Koyinim to light the meneda, I don't know. The meneda wasn't 8 feet tall. It wasn't like the what is this Agam's meneda that you have to go up with a cherry picker. It was 5 feet high, be'erech, a little bit less than 5 feet high, but there was this step in front. Okay, questions or comments? Yes, ma'am, go ahead. In other words, you're explaining the need for a step, but the kohen is this high. The meneda is here. Okay, listen, I'm not a cleaner. She's gerecht. She's probably right. That she's probably right. For sure she's right. Okay. In 30 years of marriage, I learned you're right. Huh? The cups were part of the same solid piece of gold. The tweezers. No. It's all one solid piece of gold. It was made. It wasn't welded together. It was one solid piece of gold. Three little legs, of course. Yeah. The Rambam mentioned it yesterday. Yesterday, Rambam mentioned it. And if you didn't have those 3 little legs, the meneda could never possibly... For sure. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I think I remember seeing pictures that there was a little table on the leg to keep the instruments.
Right. And that's what he's talking about here. It's Even Achas. That's what it said, yeah, on the step itself. It was the third, it was the highest step. Right.
And also the actual man that you're saying, was the kaftor indented?
Right.
So it doesn't stick out.
You see, my only issue with that is, you have to have a cup large enough to hold fuel, leile tevis ha'aruchim. 14 or 15 hours of fuel. They had to be large cups. So the way they describe it in the picture, they just show you the thing that's holding the wick. Now they have these little metal pieces. I assume that a keli large enough to hold oil, to burn comfortably. Remember, if you want something to burn 15 hours, you can't use a skinny little wick. You have to use a thicker wick so that it'll burn, that it won't go out. I mean, my Chanukah Menede, it almost never happens that the oil all burns down before the wick burns out. And this was a much larger cup than my little cups. I'm imagining it sticking out. I don't know, but I'm imagining it. Your point is well taken. The way the image is drawn, they obviously are disposed to your position. That you can't see the natives because they were within the concave, right, of the perach. But in my imagination, it was a large enough keli that it should have stuck out a little bit. But okay, point well taken. Okay, let's start. Your base. Hashulchan. Turn over your page. The table. Now, I just want to say this before I start. I don't have enough time to do the shulchan proper, but at least let me give you this. Once upon a time, that means last week on Wednesday, I introduced you to the idea that in the Beis Hamikdash there were two ames. An amma means a hand breadth. From the elbow to the tip of the middle finger is called an amma. According to the Chaim No, according to our halacha, an amma is 19 3/8 inches. 19 inches, it's a little bit less than a foot and 2/3. That's what an amma is. There's a machlokes in Shas about the Beis Hamikdash proper, but about the Mizbeach, everybody agrees. There were two types of amas. There was a bigger hand breadth, a cubit, hand breadth, right? Hand breadth, yeah. A tefach is a cubit. Yeah, I've been saying the wrong thing. A amma is a hand breadth. A tefach is a cubit, right? So the cubit is an amma. A cubit is an amma. Hand breadth is a tefach, is a fist. A cubit is from the tip of the finger to the elbow. When I was a little child, it didn't seem reasonable, but now it seems quite reasonable, yeah? 20 inches, this is 20 inches. A little less 20 inches. But the fact is that there were bigger and shorter cubits. What's the difference? Was it five fists or 6 fists? Which would mean, was it 19 plus inches or was it 16 plus inches? Most of the Beis Hamikdash was made from the larger amma of 6 tfachim. There were a few exceptions. The first was the Mizbeach. Now we have a very interesting one. And I'll tell you why. The shulchan, the table, was 2 amas. 2 amas north to south. 2 cubits. There was bread on the table. Each bread was an amma, was a cubit. And there was space between the 2 breads to put down what's called bozichin. Bozichin were little cups to hold levoina. Levoina is frankincense. If you don't know what frankincense is, don't worry, I don't either know. I just like to say the word. Okay, levoina was a spice. The lechem aponim was called ma'arochos. Orders. 2 orders. There were 6 on one pile, 6 in another pile, and there was 2 tfachim in between. So think about this. If you have a table which is exactly 2 amas, 2 cubits, and you have 2 sets of loaves, each loaf is a cubit. How do you have space in the middle? And for the Gemara, because it's 2 different amas, you understand? The table was the larger amma, 6 tfachim, which means that the table was approximately 39 inches from end to end in the long. The breads were not half of 39, they were approximately 16 and a little bit. So together they equaled to approximately 33 inches. So you had about 6 or 7 inches in the middle because they were using this larger and smaller amma to accommodate the bazichim. You understand? There are opinions who hold that the bazichim sat on top of the breads, on the top of the table, meaning to say that the breads actually covered the entire table and the cups were on top of the breads, but that's not the opinion. I don't think it's Rashi's opinion, and I don't think it's the Rambam's opinion. So let's start to read a little bit, okay? HaShulchan, the table. And of course, the table was made for mezainis, it was made for bread. And by the way, what's talk mysticism? Why not? The menorah was for light. And bepnimius ha'anyanim that goes on the Torah. or Ruach HaKodesh. The Shulchan was for food. And B'pnimis Anyonim it goes on Parnose. Parnose. Which is why the Menorah was in the south and the Shulchan was in the north. Because the Chazal say, Vesach Eirech Yomim Bimino Uvesmeilo Eshe V'chavit. Hareiche Laha'ashir Yatspin, if you want to get rich, go north. Haloise Lahachkim Yadrim, if you want to get smart, go south. So the Menorah, which represented Chachma, was on the southern side of the room. And the Chazal say, V'simnach, Shulchan B'darim, that Menorah B'darim, Shulchan B'darim. The Gemara says, the sign is that the Shulchan, which was about Parnasa, was in the north, on the left side, and the Menorah, which is about Oyer and Torah and Chachma, was on the right side. HaShulchan Hayarke Shnei Mesrei Tefach. It was 12 Tfachim length, north to south. 12 Tfachim is 2 ames, 2 cubits. V'rachbei Shisha Tfachim, and its width was 6 Tfachim, which is 1 cubit. V'ayamunech Arke Le'erech Habayis, I said it wrong. The length of the Menorah was the same as the length of the house. The Menorah was this way, according to the Rambam. But the Shulchan was this way, yeah? In other words, it was 2 cubits east to west and 1 cubit north to south. I said before incorrectly. V'rachbei Le'erech Habayis, its width was to the width of the house. V'chein, and this applies to Sh'ara Kola Kelim Shabemikdash, all the vessels in the Beis Hamikdash, Arkan La'erke Shabayis, V'rachman L'Rachman Shabayis, its length was to the length of the house, and the width was the width of the house, Chus Min Ha'arim, with the exception of the Holy Ark, that Sh'arke L'Rechav Habayis, the length of the Arim was north to south. V'chein Neres HaMenorah, the same is true also the candles of the Menorah, Kineged Rechav Habayis was to the width of the house, Bein Tzafon L'Adam. I want you to know, this Rambam doesn't make one bit of sense. How many kelim were in the Beis Hamikdash? There were 5. 5. 2 mizbeachs, an aron, a shulchan, and a menorah, right? The mizbeachs were square, both of them. They were square. So there's no length and width. So you're left with 3. Kol ha-kelim shahayu b'mikdash. Exactly. Kol ha-kelim, all the vessels in the Beis Hamikdash were chutz. What's the chutz? The Menorah and the Aron. But if you have 3 kelim in the first place, so you should say Kol ha-kelim arkam l'rechav habayis chutz min ha-Menorah. That's the Lashon HaGemara, you understand. But anyway, I promise you that Rambam has a very good explanation for why he writes it this way. But you know, it's the old story. The Maisa, the Friedrich Rebbe went with the Rebbe Rashab to look at art of an artist whose name was Raphael. It was a gorgeous picture, and in the foreground of the picture was a bird perched on a stalk of wheat. And all of these chachamim come and they're watching it and they're observing it and they're telling how wonderful it is. It was real to life. You want to touch it. A farmer walks by and said, terrible artist. The guy spoke Russian with an accent, you understand? He was a nobody. Excuse me. He said, listen, you may be big chachamim, but I work with wheat. If a bird perches on a stalk of wheat, the wheat has to bend, for heaven's sakes. Who notices reality? So the Rambam says, Kol ha-kelim shayim b'mikdash was actually 1 keli. The only one was the shulchan. But anyway, let's keep reading. The keli was round. It was round. There was no erech hareicha. The mizbeach was cube. It was a ravua. Okay. Arba snifim shel zahav hayu l'shulchan. There were 4 supports of gold for this table. Mifutzalim b'rashem, that branched out at the top. Shayuseimchem ben shtei ha'ma'arachas tachmaponim, which supported the 2 piles of bread. Shnayim misei dezeh 2 on this side, ushnayim misei dezeh 2 on the other side. And they're called in the Torah kseisa. Look at your picture. They make them like a single pole, which then forks out at the top. There are so many opinions about how these snifim looked. The bottom line is, they were metal forks of gold of some sort on either side of the table that were somehow locked together with the one on the other side. And they kept the bread in place. Because the bread was literally a pile of loaves. They put a loaf of bread, they put some pieces of metal in between it, put a second loaf. The loaves of bread were, first of all, very heavy. They were incredible. The bread was thick, it was gigantic. It's described later on in the Rambam and whatever it is in Klei HaMishkan or in the Musaf, and how the lechem apanim were made. They were very heavy. They were just piled up. Always to keep the piles from toppling over. So on either side, they supported the loaves. So you know how lechem aponim was made? Lechem aponim was dough that was quite thick, that was 2 amas by an amma. It was 10 tefachim by 5 tefachim. That's how they baked it. And after it was baked, they would lift up the side and fold them inward. You know what I'm saying? The lechem aponim was baked like this. And it was very, very thick. And after it was baked, they would fold the bread like this here and then like this. And it's called lechem aponim because you see through them. So it was 10 tefachim across. The table had 6 tefachim across. So they had 6 tefachim. They would fold it up like this and then fold it in. And it couldn't crack. It couldn't break. It was a special umnus. They would fold the breads after they were already baked. They were made flat. Big, thick loaves of bread. The bread was mamish atam gan eden. It was flour and oil. I hope you enjoy. It wasn't chametz, but it was like chewing gum. It didn't know how to ride, but it wasn't a matzah. It wasn't the matzah. It was like it was thick, and they would pile one on top of the next. The only thing separating them were these metal half pipes that were put between them. So they had on either side supports that held up the loaves. But they were called ma'aroches. In other words, if you could visualize how it was done, on Shabbos, the kohen would carry in a pile of 6 loaves. They prepared it before, and the kohen carries a big, heavy pile, and they would go over to the shulchan. One kohen stood at this end, and he would push the old loaves. And on the other, there's 2 of them, right? So the loaf closest to him would move. Then would move the second loaf, and I'm sure there were other kohen who were kind enough to help, because if chas v'sholom the bread broke, it was possible. And they would slide the old ones off one end, and slide the new ones on the other end. So there was always, Tomid by the Mizbeach, Shulchan means literally the bread was never not on the table. Tomid means always, constant. Every rega there was lechem ponim lefanai Tomid. And that's how they did it. So it was a skill. It was a gigantic pile of very heavy loaves that was not piled up on the shulchan. It was piled up before they brought it in. It was carried in as a fixed pile. That pile is called a ma'arocha. You know, if you ever look and consider on Shabbos, after Aleinu you say Ulakachta Selis. For Ulakachta Selis is talking about the lechem aponim. Since the lechem aponim was put on the table on Shabbos, every Shabbos after Musaf we say Ulakachta Selis. And you'll see over there Shtei Ma'aroches. Shtayim Ma'aroches. Sheish Ma'aroches. Each pile had 6 loaves of bread and so forth. And we read on. V'chov ches kanim shel zav. There were 28. Kanim means little pipes, half pipes of gold that ran from, I guess, from north to south. It was as if you took a pipe, imagine taking a pipe and slicing it in half this way. You have a half pipe. So they were made lechatchila, half pipes. 28 of them. Arba also l'sei dezeh, 14 for one set. V'arba also l'sei dezeh, and 14 for the other set. V'hei manikroi menaki yosef, they're called menakiyos. Now what's the cheshbon of 14? It's very simple. There are 6 loaves of bread in the stack. The first loaf of bread sat on the table. Period. There was nothing separating to the bread and the table. On top of that first loaf, there were 3 of these poles. Then there was a second loaf. Then there were 3 more. Then there was a third loaf. Then there were 3 more. And then there was a 4th loaf. And then there were 3 more. Then there was a 5th loaf. That's 12. Then there were 2 more, and then there was a 6th loaf. So below the bottom one, there weren't any. Between the first and the second, third, first and fourth and fifth, there were 3. Between the 5th and the 6th, because they didn't have to carry as much weight, there were only 2. And that's the cheshbon of 14 or 28 all told. And it continues. Ushnei abazich, there were 2 cups. They were ladles. I guess in English, I translate them as ladles. Also of gold. Shemanichen halavena ala shulchan. They placed everybody together now. The frankincense on the shulchan, bitzad ha'maroches, beside the maroches. Again, there's a deal. Some people hold that the cups were on top of the loaves. The reason to say that is, if the shulchan is 2 amas and each loaf of bread is an amma, there's no place. But we hold that there's 2 sizes to the amma. There's a longer amma of 6 tefachim. That was the amma of the shulchan. There was the shorter amma of 5 tefachim. That's the amma of the lechem. So you had 2 tefachim in between to put down these 2 cups. Heyman and Kroim kapoisa, they're called the ladles, the cups. Stop. Now understand this. I don't want to give you long speeches because I'm interested in long speeches. The way all karbanos work is that a part of the carbon goes to the Hashem and the rest of the carbon goes to other people, depending on the carbon. Most of the karbanos, to be sure, were eaten by koyanim. Koyanim had to be, I can't tell you. The Gemara describes to be a koyan. They were sick. They were sick from cold. They walked around barefoot on top of a mountain. And from indigestion, they ate so much. They had to eat and eat and eat and eat. A whole day they sat and ate. The miracle was, they didn't do it. Did it one day out of every 24 weeks. One. So the Gemara says that there was a certain person, his name is mentioned in the Gemara, that b'yamav there was never ever noisad in the Beis Hamikdash. The man must have been 400 pounds. But he ate every carbon. The karbonis, the Chazal say, koyanim eichel mabaylam iskaprim, when the koyan eats, it's a kapara for the Yisrael. So the noiser was a problem. Leftovers was a problem. I mean, how much could the koyanim eat? That eat all the shirei carbon. A chatos, a small portion went to the mizbeach, the rest was eaten by the koyanim. Or asham, a small portion was eaten by the mizbeach, the rest went to the koyanim. Lechem aponim. So what I want to say is the Lashon Gemara is mishmaya kazoch, or mishuchan gavoya. Every carbon, even a carbon, a kachim kalim, you know that the meat is going to come to you. But you don't get it from the balabas, from the person who brings the carbon. Because the kohen is not entitled to his apportionment until the part that's for Hashem goes up on the mizbeach. And the lashon is that you're taking from the supernal table, from God's table. So a kohen knows, for example, a carbon shlomim, a peace offering. A piece went on the mizbeach, a piece went to the kohen, and in that case, most of the meat went to the Yisrael. But the kohen didn't get his piece of meat from the Yisrael. The kohen got his piece from the Shulchan Gavoya, because until the part that went on the mizbeach was put on the mizbeach, you couldn't eat the rest of it. You understand? So that's how the karbanos were brought. So every single carbon has these 2 components: what the Eibush to get, and then what Hashem gives us back. In the Lachem Aponim, it was these levoina. Every week they put bread on the table. It sat there for 8 days. And if it was Yom Kippur, for 9 days. And they took it bread off and they ate it. The bread was fresh. 1 drop of the bread of Lechem Aponim was maspia. It satisfied a person. There were a lot of miracles about it. But before the Kohanim could divide the Lechem Aponim amongst themselves, Hashem got his portion. Hashem's portion was not one of the loaves. Hashem's portion was this levoina. When the Eibush got his levoina, then the Kohanim got their lechem. That's how it was. Okay? I'm sorry. Between the 2 loaves on them, it was called the kapes, bazichin. It sat there a whole week. The whole week. No, it was between the loaves. No, it was in a cup. When it came Shabbos, they took off the levoina. They took out the old breads, put on the new breads, but new levoina. The old levoina went on the mizbeach. Of course. And after the Eibush, they got his levoina, the koyanim got their lechem. That's what I'm trying to describe. Halach, I'll do one more. Tesvav. Elu harba asar kanim. These 14 half poles. This is how it was. I already told it to you orally. I'm reading it inside now, okay? The first loaf was directly on the table. Between the first and second loaf, there were 3 poles. Between the third and second and the third and the fourth and the fifth. However, between the 5th and 6th, there's only 2, because since there was nothing above the 6th, so they didn't have to hold so much weight. So 2 was sufficient. That explains the cheshbon of 14 of these poles on each one of the 2 ma'arachas. One mahalach, okay? There were 2 tables that stood in the entrance to the Beis Hamikdash, outside in the ulam. 2 tables. One was made of marble. The breads that were new, they were going in, they were fresh, were put in. By the way, they didn't bake the bread on Shabbos. The apakursim flang lachem, they're giving the Eibush the stale bread. It wasn't when the lachem upon him was put on the shulchan. It was already a day old. Why? That to bake it out of Shabbos, you couldn't bake it on Shabbos. It went on the Mizbeach Shabbos afternoon. So when the loaf went on the Mizbeach, it was close to 24 hours old. And then it sat there for a week. And then the next Shabbos they took it off and the cycle repeated itself. Okay? So, it was fresh and warm. So the new loaves went on the table of marble. The second one was made of gold. The bread that came out was placed on it. Now, why would you put the old bread, the new bread on tables of marble, which is cheaper, and the old bread on tables of gold? Says the Rambam, you want to go up in holiness. So when you started, you used the cheaper table, and when you were done, you used the more expensive table. We're going to stop right here. The next halacha is the Mizbech. I'll see you tomorrow.